Hello and welcome to JamHammer. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how to speed paint a trained troll up to a tabletop standard ready for entering the gridiron. It's been a while since we did any Blood Bowl stuff, and I've still got quite a few models sat around unpainted in the second season box set, so thought now is about time to crack on and get the troll painted. This is a fantastic miniature with a lot of characterful details, like the human nobility helmet knee guard and the bear trap snapped on its foot. The pose really encapsulates the humour to be found in this game too. After all, why throw the ball when you can throw a goblin holding the ball? I initially planned to paint this mini in the same colour scheme as the Thunder Valley goblins that I painted in a previous video, with pale green skin much akin to the one pictured here from Games Workshop. But I wanted to experiment with a different palette so that this brutish player stood out even more on the table but was still clearly a member of the Black Orc team. I decided to do something more akin to a Warcraft troll then, or an ice troll. Or wait, ice giant? Not this murderous git who's killed many a pilgrim to High Hrothgar. Blue flesh anyway. To keep this as quick as possible, I'm going to try a cheap and cheerful, slap-chop-esque technique. Now, I don't own any contrast or speed paints, as they're a bit outside my price range, so for this video, we'll need to add highlights and shadow manually in the fastest way possible. No idea if this is going to work, but let's find out. First things first then, I'm going to lay down a Zenethal Highlight. I've only got a limited palette of blues, and it's a dark ultramarine, so I'm going to keep the undercoat nice and pale. For this, a layer of grey prime sprayed all over, and then a top-down blast of white. This way we'll hopefully get a nice transition from pale above, down to a darker colour underneath as we apply our subsequent colours. As usual, you can find affiliate links to all the tools and materials that I'm using in this video down in the description below, as well as the timecodes if you wanted to jump to a specific section. To speed up the process, I'm getting a pretty thick brush that still comes to a nice point so that we can get plenty of paint on the mini as quickly but as accurately as possible. I'm then going to dilute the colours a lot more than we typically would, almost double. Some acrylic medium could be useful here if you have any to maintain the pigment, yet achieve a thin enough consistency that our Zenethal Highlight shows through clearly. More water than usual can work fine too, like I'm doing here. Going to apply this all over the skin here nice and quick, and we don't need to worry about any mistakes at this early stage. Just getting a thorough coat all over the skin. Make sure to get all the flesh that's peeking out around the cloth and armour, as well as in between these scales that we'll paint over next. You can see that the paint is very thin here, as the white undercoat on the face is coming straight through. This is great, as we want this lightness coming through so we can have a basic highlight already done for us and we won't have to add it in later. We just want the paint dark enough that the grey colour of the prime is covered and our troll is actually tinted blue. One coat should be sufficient to achieve this. Usually, with this amount of base paint still visible, we would apply another layer, but we're being speedy here, and this time we want the undercoat to be seen. Next up, we're going to thin down a green paint to the same consistency. I'm using Goblin Green from my Vallejo set, and we want to apply this over the flesh of the poor goblin who is about to be spiralled downfield. We want to get this on the face, arms, and legs that are visible between the armour and uniform, and again, just throwing this on very quickly as we'll be painting over these other areas later. Goblin's done, and we can see the highlights on the nose and top of the head are clearly coming through. The blue of the troll is dry now, so we can move on to a purple. This will probably be the slowest part, as you want to thin this way down again and use this to catch all of these hide-like plates dotted over our mini. This is why we want a brush that comes to a good point so we can get these without spilling over onto the flesh. No worries if we do go over though, as we can correct any mistakes later. Most of these scales are on the back of the model, and once we've done these, just need to paint a few more on the right thigh and the belly of the beast. To ensure this troll is still recognisable as a member of the Thunder Valley Greenskins, I'm going to thin down a black paint now and use this on the loincloth here. You can see that even this dark colour, once thinned, allows that zenithal through along the edges so it looks as though it's highlighted. I'm going to use the paint on the board around the troll's neck too, and on the armour on the left shoulder and arm guard. After the troll is done, we're going to move on to the goblin, who's also a key team player, and paint their armour with this colour as well, so knee pads, shoulder pads, and their boots too. Next up, and we're going to put a dark brown on the leather straps, so this one on the right wrist for example. You can see that I was a bit overzealous throwing this on in the name of speed and spilled over, but can cover over that later. Going to get the leather strap that's around the back of the troll too with this colour, and then move on to the goblin again. Painting the leather gloves with this brown paint, as well as their trousers and the ball itself. I think this brown is a welcome change of tone, as this mini is looking a bit cold with all the blue, black and purple. Although, pretty apt for an ice troll. To that end, let's add in some nice refreshing white paint. So, using the Games Workshop picture as a reference again, and their Thunder Valley troll has a very fetching white glove, so gonna paint this in now. Unfortunately, this bright colour will mask over our highlights, but no worries, as we can add some depth to this with a shade down the line. That's it for the troll, just enough to tie them in with the rest of the team, and we're on to the goblin. Gonna use this colour on their uniform shirt, so clumsily through the hand to get at the chest here. But the back of the jersey is already white from the zenithal, so can ignore that, and instead going to add just a little of this colour onto the cuffs of the boots. Bit of an optional step here, as you could just use the dark brown from before, but my Vallejo set comes with a lighter brown paint. I'm going to use a touch of this on the tie around the troll's gloves, the strapping around their neck sign, and then a bit on the fabric running across the goblin's chest and gloves. Next up, and we've done the large sections, so for the following bits of detail, I'm going to move on to using the standard consistency of paints. I've got a stone coloured grey here that I've thinned down only a little that it flows easier. I'm going to use this on all the troll's nails and spines to make it look aptly stone-like. So these on the toes, these on the hands, and then quite a few spines that are protruding out from the back of the mini like this. Much like the glove, we're not going to get much of a highlight coming through here, so we'll need to add depth with shade instead. With the spines done, I'm going to grab a bone white paint now, and keep this to a typical consistency as well. This is going on the very lovely skulls and bones that are dangling down from our troll's belt. And then, getting the brush to a nice point, I'm going to use this colour to pick out what teeth our troll has remaining. I guess the Blood Bowl League don't make gum shields large enough for this brute. I wanted to add a little more warmth to the mini just to balance it, so I'm going to switch to a Citadel paint here, Screamer Pink, and use this on the human nobility helmet our troll has jammed on as a knee guard. And going to use this colour just to pick out the lips on the troll as well as the goblin. A few more details to cover now, and I want to get the inner ears of the troll. I'm going to use this Vallejo Fleshtone, but it's way too bronze, so mixing this 50-50 with some leftover bone white on my palette so that it's a bit more pale, and then applying this into those ears. Red next, and we only want a tiny dab of this just to pick out the eyes of our troll like this. Luckily, these are quite large and easy to get at. Plus, as our player is aiming downfield, the other eye is squinting shut. The goblin is a bit trickier to get at, but with a sharp point, we can get these too. we're almost done with our non-metallic paints now, so just grabbing a big soft brush or a bespoke dry brush like this one, I'm going to get this loaded up with some more leftover bone white paint from the palette. I'm going to wipe away most of it on a piece of kitchen paper and then apply this to the Mini. I want the belly and the face to be particularly pale and transition to the blue of the rest of the model, so I'm going to apply this very heavily in these areas like this. Then, just starting working it back from the centre to the rest of the flesh. Just want to lightly brush this then all over the Mini as well, and we can see that it's just catching the very edges of the spines, folds in the cloth, and the raised muscle tissue, just to bring these out a little bit more. This will leave our model looking a bit dusty at this point, but not to worry, as we'll fix that soon. Going on to our metallics now, and these are all going on in the usual dilution, around 4 parts paint to 1 part water. Using a gunmetal colour first, and that's going on the shackle around the right ankle, as well as the chainmail that's hanging down from underneath that right shoulder armour. In keeping with the orcs on the team, I'm going to paint the fin here with this paint too, and then use it to pick out any of these metal spikes on the troll and goblin. And it's at this point I noticed that I completely forgot to paint the arm guard with our black paint earlier. Whoops. Still with the gunmetal, I'm going to use it on the pointy bits sticking out from the ball. This is quite the brutal sport. I'm going to use a coppery metallic, Citadel's Rune Lord Brass, on the nails sticking through this board. And on the bear trap snapped over our troll's foot. Could use gunmetal for these, but just wanted to add a bit more variety here and thought introducing some of this colour would create a bit more warmth too to balance the otherwise cool tones. Final metallic, and that's gold, which is going on the earring here, as well as the ornamentation and face guard of that purloined helmet on the knee. And that's about it. Just going to take this opportunity to cover over any mistakes. Using this palette that I made, all the colours are still wet and ready to use, so I can dip into these nice and quick to catch some areas I missed, like the inside of the troll's other ear with that Fleshtone mix, and some black on that missed arm guard. To speed things up, instead of applying different washes to different areas, I'm going to mix our black and brown shades together in a 1:1 ratio, and just throw this on all over the Mini. So, loading up my brush with this mix, this is going on the back, getting into the recesses between the spines and plates, all over the glove, seeping into the folds of the fabric, and it's going to get us back some of that depth. And, of course, covering our brave gobbo too. And we're done! This model just needs to dry, and it's ready for using in your games of Blood Bowl. Once it was dry enough to touch, I painted the textured base with that stone grey just to match in with the black orc pitch, and coated the outside with a layer or two of black paint as well, just to neaten it up. If you're interested in how to create these custom bases, I'll leave a link here where you can see how to model them yourself really easily using some modelling putty. So for actual hands-on painting time, this took just under an hour to go from undercoated Mini to ready to use on the tabletop. Thank you so much for watching this video, I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking it, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the bell to be notified of new videos being released. There's obviously loads more that could be done to get this model into a more parade-ready standard. I'll probably go back over it, and using the Zenethal as a guide, apply over those areas with some more direct highlights. I'm pretty happy that this model blends in with the orcs and goblins from my team, but I may go back over and paint the loincloth with, say, that brown colour just to offset some of the coldness from the flesh. But overall, I think this turned out great considering it was painted at speed. There'll be more videos about the Thunder Valley greenskins being released in the future, so please do keep an eye out for new Blood Bowl content coming soon to JamHammer. In the meantime, there are plenty of other videos available on the channel, including a few that are on screen now for you to click on. Thanks again for watching.